Chaturdasham Narasimham
Vibradajendram Bhuritam
Vibradajendram Bhuritam
Dalakarayura Irakam Kalaprijita.
Others? Anyone else?
Chaturdasham Narasimham
Chaturdasham Narasimham Vibradajendram Ujitam Chaturdasham, the 14th in the line. Narasimham, the incarnation of the Lord is half Mayan and half man. Vibrat, invented. Daitya Indram, the king of the atheists. Urjitam, strongly built. The Dara, bifurcated. Karajahai, by the nails. Uro, on the lap. Irakam, canes. Katakrit, carpenter. Ita, just like. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. In the 14th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Nrsimha and bifurcated the strong body of the atheist Hiranyakashipu with his nails, just as a carpenter pierces cane. Responsibly, in the 14th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Nrsimha and bifurcated the strong body of the atheist Hiranyakashipu with his nails, just as a carpenter pierces cane. Text, there's no purport, so I'll read the next verse. Panchadasham Vamanasam Kridvayadvaram Balehe Padatrayam Yachamanaha Patyadishyas Tripistapam Panchadasham, the 15th in the line. Vamanakam, the dwarf Brahmana. Rikva, by assumption of. A god went. Advaram, arena of sacrifice. Balehe, the king Bali. Pariyatrayam, 3 steps only. Yachamanaha, begging. Pratyaditsuhu, willing at heart to return. Tripishtapam, the kingdom of 3 planetary systems. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. In the 15th incarnation, the Lord assumed the form of a dwarf Vamana and visited the arena of sacrifice arranged by Maharaj Bali. Although at heart he was willing to regain the kingdom of the 3 planetary systems, he simply asked for a donation of 3 steps of land responsibly. In the 15th incarnation, the Lord assumed the form of a dwarf Brahman, Vamana, and visited the arena of sacrifice arranged by Maharaj Bali. Although at heart, he was willing to regain the kingdom of the 3 planetary systems, he simply asked for a donation of 3 steps of land. Report by Srila Prabhupada. The Almighty God can bestow upon anyone the kingdom of the universe from a very small beginning, and similarly he can take away the kingdom of the universe on the plea of begging a small piece of land. So it's kind of interesting here. These 2 incarnations are different aspects of the Supreme Lord. I think Prabhupada said that in the hands of Vishnu he has a chakra and a lotus flower. He does, whether Prabhupada said it or not. That's the form of Vishnu that's worshipped. So he can be, in that sense, soft as a rose and hard as a lightning or thunderbolt. This was exhibited by many people in the line of disciplic succession. Sometimes they were very, very uncompromising and very hard, and sometimes very soft. And this word has a very bad connotation, but diplomatic. And I guess a more appropriate word is to say gentle or genteel. Prabhupada told once the story of a doctor whose assistant was implicated with his wife, and we all knew what that meant. But he didn't say it, in a very, very nasty, heavy way. He didn't say that he was having sex with his wife or he was having an affair with his wife. He said he was implicated with his wife. But we all knew what it meant. So he was kind of a master of saying things in a gentle way. But he could also be very, very hard and uncompromising. I won't repeat some of the things he said, but there was one instance where he was very angry when a Rath Yatra in England was banned in 1974, I think it was. Is that the year? Anyway, it was banned. And I was in England, but he was in somewhere else at the time, and I got this letter from him, and the tape, he actually made a tape recording. He was so angry, he said that he called some very highly elevated people, very adored and very loved, hippies and all sorts of things like that. And this is a pretty strong statement, and it's actually been it's gone sort of viral, and it's all on the web. So I won't repeat it, but if you're very interested, you can hear what Prabhupada did say when he was angry. So there's the chakra and the lotus. The chakra is customarily used by Krishna to kill demons, to cut off the heads of people, like he did with Rahu. And then in the lotus flower, he can be very gentle. Sometimes the aspect of gentleness or diplomacy is manifested. I've probably told the story a few times, but when the deities of Radha and Krishna were acquired for what was then Berry Place, is now Soho Street, the people who brought those deities, who actually owned those deities, weren't going to give them to us. At least they said that because there was a break in the wrist or arm of one of the deities, they said, we'll fix it and then give it to you. But I think Prabhupada sort of guessed that they really weren't going to give it to us, because it's a tradition in that part of the world that if there's any damage like that, which is pretty severe, to a deity, it shouldn't be worshipped ever. So Prabhupada was there, I was there, and Tamal Krishna was there, and Radha Raman was there. Some devotees you probably don't know were there. Jamuna was there, you may know her. So Prabhupada was discussing with these people that owned the deities something. It was all in Hindi, so we didn't know what was being said. And it was a kind of a very serious discussion. The deities were at one veil, they were sitting there, the devotees were sitting there, Prabhupada was there, and the people that owned the deities were sitting down. They were from that part of the world where Prabhupada was from. And it was all in Hindi, so we didn't know what was going on. And then Prabhupada suddenly said in English, "We have a man." And then he gestured to Jamuna. And we thought that was kind of strange, because Jamuna is not a man. Anyway, then it went back into Hindi, and it was a long conversation, very serious. And then he gestured to one of the devotees, and he said, "Just see if Krishna is very heavy." And so he kind of lifted him up, and it was quite heavy. It was a 1 meter high deity. It's the same deity that's installed in Soho Street now. And then the conversation went back into Hindi, so we didn't know what was going on. And then in English, Prabhupada said to one of the devotees, "We'll just take him out to the van." And then the conversation resumed in Hindi, but instead of being a very serious conversation, it was kind of a jovial conversation. And Prabhupada was smiling, and the other people were smiling. And then Prabhupada asked one of the other devotees to say if the deity of Radharani was very heavy. And then he said, "We'll just take her out to the van." And then this conversation resumed in Hindi again, in a kind of jovial, joking way. And everyone was laughing and smiling. And before all said and done, there were no deities there. They had gone out into the van that we had come in. And Prabhupada kept up this Hindi conversation in a very jovial way, and we still don't know what was being said. But then as we were driving off with the deities and all the devotees in the van, Prabhupada chuckled to himself and said that once upon a time, when he was in Calcutta, when he was younger, he, in his words, foiled the bank manager. I don't know what was the scheme. I foiled the scheme of the bank manager, he said. And we don't know what the scheme was. We never found out. Maybe he was going to get a loan and he was refused or something like that. And he kind of chuckled to himself. And at a certain point, the bank manager said to him, "Mr. Day, you should have been a politician." Prabhupada was very pleased with himself. And then some years later, we realized that he had changed the minds of his people who possessed the deities, that they weren't going to give them to us at all, if not then, if at all. Then Prabhupada just was so attached to those deities, he convinced them that they should change their minds and that we would take them. That's what happened. Anyway, it's all in the past. But those are the deities that are installed in Soho Street now, Radha and Krishna, very beautiful deities. And they were on the cover of one of the Bhagavatams in pictured. I don't think they're still there, but in one of the earlier editions of the Srimad Bhagavatam, those deities were pictured. So sometimes Prabhupada has decried diplomacy, and usually he talked about it in terms of politics and all the nasty things that go along with it. And it's been said that a politician is someone who can tell you to go to hell in such a way that you will look forward to the journey. But the use of that particular word, and there's some Hindi, I don't know what the Hindi word translations are of the word diplomacy, but it was always generally referred to in a kind of a negative way. When Shitala, or Sitala, I don't know exactly how to pronounce her name, wrote her book and distributed it here, she talked a bit about Raghunath Das, and said that one thing that he was very expert in, although he was very learned and very wise, one thing he was very able to deal with the material world in a very careful and sort of unusually brilliant, astute manner. And there's the instance that's narrated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think it is, or it was in one of the lectures, where tax assessors were going to come after Raghunath's father and brother and uncle. It was Mujumdar was their surname, and it was Govardhana and Hiranya Mujumdar. But they got wind of that. This was at the time when Muslims were ruling India. It was quite some time ago, so a few hundred years back. So we don't know, and they were very wealthy. We don't know that if they were concealing money or not giving it, or whether the government was corrupt or what was actually happening. But anyway, they got wind of the fact that this assessor person was coming, and they fled. They left before he got there. And when he got there, the only person there, not the only person, but the person that dealt with them was Raghunath Swami, or Raghunath Das, he was called then. And he just dealt with them on behalf of his father and uncle in such a way that they left completely satisfied. In other words, it was settled in a so-called amicable manner. And he was he knew what to do. He was like a judge or a jury. You know, it was a very complex situation that dealt with finances, and somehow he was able to settle the whole thing. And there's the instance of Sanatana Goswami when he left his service of being prime minister for one of the Mohammedan rulers, Nawab Hussain Shah, I think his name was. He was a very important person, and the Nawab had him jailed. And he used very, very careful tact. Maybe that's a better word than diplomacy. Tact and genteelism to sort of get out of prison and meet Lord Chaitanya. So he used his kind of material intelligence to be genteel and to be tactful. So sometimes, and Prabhupada is known for saying that sometimes you can, for the sake of keeping peace in the world, like he said that a businessman says, "For you, I'm making no profit." So it's kind of a lie. It's not really true. He is making a profit, but he says that in order to. It's a kind of marketing ploy, and he kind of approved of telling lies occasionally. And when but at the same time, it's been written several times that the mark of a Brahmin is that he can be very honest and never lie. And one who is Brahminical can even tell a thief how much money he has, if the thief is after his money. He's so honest, and so there's kind of a time for everything, a time to be a little lying or deceptive, and there's a time for being completely honest. But most of the time, the honesty is the best policy, and that's the mark of a Brahmin. He's honest, always honest, and very telling. There was a devotee who was about to be robbed once, and this happened. This is a true thing that happened. He was in Los Angeles, and it was kind of dark out at nighttime, and a fellow was going to rob him and take all his money. And he asked him how much money. He said, I only have about $5 with me. I'm a Hare Krishna devotee, and he was not dressed as a devotee, so the person didn't know. And as soon as he said whatever he said, this person just said, "Okay, well, go ahead," and went away and didn't rob him or roll him or do anything dangerous. So so somehow devotees are admired for their honesty, and it's a mark of a Brahmin to be honest and clean, and people appreciate that. That's why this temple is very clean. I think we had a letter once from Prabhupada that said that the temple should be as clean as a mirror. Those are the words he used, clean as a mirror. So the next day the devotees went out and bought all kinds of cleaning equipment, mops and sponges and solutions for cleaning the temple. And even though it was a wooden floor, it was very, very clean. And people do appreciate that. Even from a material point of view, as we can see, the hedge out here, I'm just looking at it now, is very well manicured and very well kept, and the lawn is very, very closely mowed. And people do appreciate that sort of thing. And the centerpiece is very beautiful, and I don't know who did it, but someone did it, and people do appreciate that. And I think Bart is taking people on tours, and I've been told by Ajita that the thing they like best on the tours is the temple. There's the cows, and there's the landscape, and the lake, and the dam, and many beautiful things. But the thing they like the best is right. Is that right, Bart? Yeah. He's nodding his head. Bart is nodding his head. He takes them on the tour. Is the temple and the deities. That's what people like the best. So segueing a little into a book that Dinabandhu wrote. I'm going to read a portion of it. Dinabandhu, some of you have ever been to Vrindavan, know who I'm talking about. He's the American guy who speaks Hindi, and he's lived there for many years. And he's so much a part of Raj that the people of Raj call him our Dinabandhu, even though he's an American, and he talks like me when he speaks English, but most of the time he speaks in Hindi. So he wrote a book about over 20 years ago, I don't know exactly when it was written, called Madhurya Kandamati, and it was about the stages of devotion ending in Ruchi, Bhava, and Prema. And he talks about those specific things. And so I'm going to, if we have time, just read a portion of this book. It's out of print now. It's called Madhurya Kandamati, The Cloud Bank of Nectar. It's Vishwanath Chakravarti was the person who inspired this writing, because it's really his book. But Dinabandhu translated it. It says, translated by Dinabandhu with the help of his friends. Pretty interesting. Anyway, this is all about ruchi, and according to what I'm going to read, there's two types of ruchi. One is it's called Vastu Vashishtyavanapekshashini. And there's another type of Vastu that's called something else. Anyway, both of them are important, and one is when there's excellence of elements, like And Prabhupada has given the example, or maybe it's in here, yeah. It's like a person who is very hungry will relish even very plain food, like bread that doesn't have any butter on it. But he's so hungry that it tastes good. And there's other people that they're not hungry at all, but that when very well cooked and very beautiful presentation of food is presented before them, they eat the whole thing. So that's called excellence of elements. So there's two types of ruchi. And it seems that Prabhupada appreciated both types. One type is that every shloka is a poem. I mean, I don't know much about Sanskrit, obviously, but every shloka is actually a poem. That's one thing we learned from Prabhupada. And at the same time, very simple, and there was a painting or drawing that the devotee about 5 years old made, and it was a kind of very primitive drawing, not a great work of art. We wouldn't consider it, but Prabhupada meditated on this picture. And all the way, I was told that all the way from New York to London, he had it attached to the back of the seat in front of him on the airplane, and he was meditating on his picture for about 5 or 6 hours during the whole journey. So even though that wasn't excellence of elements, Prabhupada really liked that because he could see that it was done with devotion. So this is called the fifth shower of nectar. I'm reading now, attainment of taste. And I think I mistakenly translated ruchi as being enthusiasm. But actually, Prabhupada generally translates ruchi as taste, as on the way to Bhava and Prema. So this is Vishwanath Chakrabarti's writing as translated by Dinabandhu. When a devotee takes into his heart the golden medallion of bhakti, shining brightly by the fire of steady practice and propelled by its own energy, then ruchi appears. When a person develops a taste for the activities of bhakti, such as hearing and chanting, vastly greater than attraction for anything else, that is called ruchi. Unlike previous stages, at ruchi, constant performance of devotional service like hearing and chanting does not cause even the slightest fatigue. Ruchi quickly produces an intense addiction to the activities of bhakti. These are Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti's words translated. This is similar to the Brahmin boy who, diligently studying the scriptures daily, in time grasps the meaning, and then finds no difficulty at all in applying himself to study. Moreover, he takes pleasure in doing his task. The actual conclusion can be understood by the following example. Due to a disease in the liver, the ability to taste becomes affected, and sugar candy becomes distasteful. Sugar candy, however, is also the medicine to cure the disease. Understanding this, an afflicted person will take sugar, cures his sickness. An afflicted person will take sugar candy daily, even if it tastes bitter. And eventually, as it cures his sickness, he will develop a real taste for it. In the same way, the jivas are infected with ignorance, and the other kleshas becomes cured by the medicine of repeatedly hearing, chanting, and other devotional methods. In some public places, there's a picture of a cell phone with a cross mark in front of it. So there probably should be something here like that too, because it's kind of disturbing when a phone rings in the middle of a class in a temple. I don't know who had it. Huh?
I apologize. I should have.
I have mine too, but it's switched off.
Yeah.
Here. Anyways, thank you. Then eventually he develops a taste for these activities. Ruchi is of two types, which depends on excellence. That which depends on excellence of elements, vastu vashishtya apekshani, and that which does not, vastu vashishtya apekshani, jnana apekshani. Excellence of elements refers to an excellence of details in relation to the Lord's name, qualities, pastimes, and so on. For instance, a person may only experience pleasure from kirtan if it is pleasure to the ear and artistically sung. May only relish topics of the Lord if they are delivered skillfully with poetic ornaments and qualities. May only enjoy deity worship if the place, implements, materials, and so on are according to his fancy. This is called dependence on excellence of elements. It is similar to a person with a weak appetite asking about the variety and quality of preparations in a meal. The cause is a slight impurity in the heart of the devotee. One should thus understand this dependence on the excellence of elements in kirtan and other devotional practices as a taint of impurity in the heart, doshat vasa. I'm going to read on. But before I do, I'm going to say that there were some people, I think they were Indian, I don't know which state they were from, but they were, one had a harmonium hanging from his neck, and another one had a mridanga of some sort hanging from his neck. And I think they were sort of what we would call professional kirtaneers. Their music was broadcast, but when anyone came to, and I was one of those people who came to hear them, they did a whole bit of a song and dance perform. It was actual performance. So what I'm getting at is that people can sometimes be attracted by kirtan that's not really sincere, but that's musically very interesting. So that happens occasionally. Anyway, reading on, a person with the second type of ruchi, where excellence of elements, will experience great pleasure, and even from the beginning of any performance of such practices as Shravana and Kirtana, if, however, there is excellence of elements, then he becomes extremely joyful and ecstatic. It means that he has not the slightest trace of impurity in his heart. This is an argument for, singing the mantras properly with beautiful melodies and every shloka being a poem and so on. And then it goes on to say, well, we have about one more minute. Oh friend, quote, "Oh friend, why are you giving up the nectar of Krishna's names to talk about such useless things as family life, security, and all?" Let me try to see who this is a quote from. I know it doesn't say. It says, "In this way the devotee repents his former state." So the quote is, "Oh friend, why are you giving up the nectar of Krishna's names to talk about such useless things as family life, security, and all? What can I say to you? I myself am so wicked, though I received this precious jewel of bhakti by the mercy of the spiritual master. I'm so unfortunate that I kept it tied in the hem of my cloth. Unaware of its value, I was searching out a cracked cowrie shell, a tiny speck of false happiness on the shore of the ocean of mundane activities. Thus, wandering here and there, I passed the years of my life in vain, not practicing any activity of bhakti. I've simply shown lethargy, or laziness, for those of you who don't know what lethargy means. Oh, such am I, and my sense of taste, that I lick up bitter tasting, deceitful, profane gossip as if nectar, but remain apathetic to hearing the names, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. I'm so fallen. Then I start to hear about the Lord. When I start to hear about the Lord, I comfortably fall asleep. But at the chance to hear vulgar idle talk, my ears prick up and I become wide awake. In this way, I've always stained the assembly of devotees. What sinful acts haven't I done, even in my decrepit old age, simply to satisfy my insatiable belly? For all these, I don't know for how long, or in what hell I have to suffer." End quote. In this way, the devotee repents his former state. Then, somewhere, this is Dinabandhu's translation now, and Vishwanath Chakravarti's statement. Then somewhere, sometime, the devotee becomes like a bee, tasting the nectar of the fruit of Maha Upanishad, desire tree, Srimad Bhagavatam. He remains constantly with devotees, sitting with them, conversing about the nectarine pastimes of the Lord, relishing and glorifying them again and again, to the exclusion of all other topics. He enters the sacred Dhamma and becomes fixed in the pure, unalloyed service of the Lord. Seva Nishta.
When is the appropriate time in an audience? Obviously one becomes expert. You give whatever Krishna consciousness you have to others, wherever you are. But if you're giving the class, how sannyasis particularly, when is the right time practice to diplomacy or, let's say, thunderbolt?
That's a very good question. Maybe we can talk about this after class. Thank you. Very good question. Any others? Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srimad Vishwanath Chakravarti ki jai. Is this